Morning everyone. So for this video I wanted to do a army look at a specific Cinco de Wingo list which I find very fascinating and is doing very well obviously also. And so it's the list in front of me. It's the Empire by Konrad of Team Poland. So Konrad, a Bracis, you guys should know him. He has his own YouTube channel. He's scored top points at ETC before, so it's not a surprise that a good player is doing well with a list. I mean, there's a lot of good players doing well with lists. I think what's interesting is, one, it's Empire, and a lot of people don't play Empire. It's not the most popular army. I feel like even at recent ETCs that I've at least watched or pay attention to, there have been very few really Empire pioneers or champions of the army. There are good players that play it. I know Wilhelm from Denmark played Empire one year and did very well, but it's not like he's an Empire player all the time, right? So I don't feel like Empire has like a Furion where somebody just plays them all the time and they're really good with them, like a really, really good Empire player. So that's one reason I find it so fascinating, because if you look at the list, and I brought it up on New Recruit just so maybe it's easier to see, especially how the points break out, where he has points he could do. Like you can see he only has 25 character points left. There's nothing, and I don't mean this there's nothing like super weird, right? It's not like he's taking a bunch of flagellants or a bunch of Sun Griffin Knights or 2x10 Pistoliers with those handgun things. It's things that people do use, except not so much the 20-man heavy infantry units, but it's a cannon, a steam tanks, and pistols. And what I like about the list, and I have done some research about it and watched him play the game, is kind of just how it kind of fits together, and it feels like there's little decisions he's made in list building that just sort of work. And so he's doing very well in this tournament. And I've spoken to him about the list too, and I don't think the list is broken, and I don't think it's some weird OP list out there that needs to be nerfed. I think it's a strong list with good synergies played by a great player in an environment where no one really has played against it before. And I think that, and I think I'm pretty sure he'll admit that if you talk to him about it, is that people don't play against it very well. And so that's always an advantage when you're playing with a list, is if you're playing something a little more unique and you're really good, you can kind of get away with it, especially if it has some tricks or things people don't see. And I really like the makeup of this list, and we'll go through his choices and my thoughts on maybe why he did it. And I don't have all the answers. He didn't divulge all the information of why he took things, but there's some little things I've seen him do that maybe at least you can see some of the synergies between the lists. So the first thing I noticed when actually putting his list into New Recruit was nothing is worth over 475 points. The Stank is the most expensive thing, and that includes the two characters that are worth an extra 200. So if he loses anything, it's only worth 475 points max. So that's something that I thought was pretty cool. He is almost maxed on heroes. He has 6 characters, which is a lot of characters. 4 of them are on horses. 4 of them are on horses. Min Corps, essentially, an Imperial Guard unit, some chaff, some shooting. The list is actually very shooty. I've seen it play a couple times, and yeah, it lights some people up off the board. So maybe some of this, what we have to do is talk about Empire in general. So I feel like Empire is the most white bread army on paper. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If something like Demons had the Empire special rules, let's say everything in Empire was just converted to like Demons or something and had some different theme put to it, I actually think they'd be very popular, because they have a lot of cool things in their list that people don't really use to the full extent. Orders are really good. The parent, no one really uses supporting charge, counter charge a lot. Konrad does. He doesn't use the blessings. He doesn't have a prayer, but those are pretty cool as well. And then, some shooting, some good items, some really items like the locket are, I don't know, they're just really good and really define some matchups and make it hard for some people. So I really do like a lot of the Empire special rules. They're just kind of boring on paper. They're like human on horse, human with more armor, human with bigger weapon type thing. Um, yeah. So just Konrad has 2 orders in his list. One is from his artificer, so he gets accurate, and one is from his knight commander can give an order. No, the marshal can, I believe, right? It has to be the marshal. The BSB gives an order, I think. Where is it? I don't know all the rules for Empire, so he has a marshal who gets an order. Gotcha. Yeah, because his knight commander doesn't. His knight commander gives him fearless, and he becomes a parent unit, so he can get orders. Okay, so back to the list. Let's start with the magic. So his magic is only a Cosmo Master with heirloom and scepter of power. So I know he does really like scepter of power, and it's a good item, especially on. Cosmo has a lot of nice spells for it. You can kind of go for 3 dices on some of the, like, hit everybody in the unit, and then always add a die if you feel it's necessary. So you can go a little more risky early on. But as far as just 5 spells, I really actually, as boring as it sounds, I really like liberal magics from Empire. Essentially, a lot of armies have either some, weakness to Quicksilver Lash or Fireball. And so being able to take one of the two all the time is really nice. Like, I think having Lash as a hereditary and not having to take all of Metal, which Metal is a fine lore, but Alchemy is kind of polarizing a little bit, where if you don't play a lot of armor, it's kind of useless. But a lot of times, Quicksilver Lash is one of the better spells because, unlike Molten Copper and stuff, it's really good against like dragons and like treemen and I mean, they're both good against steam tanks, but it's just, there's a lot of things where it's like, okay, having Quicksilver Lash as your hereditary is really good, because then you still get 4 Cosmo spells, which has a magic missile, a really good one, Ice and Fire. It has a heal, which is great for his army. He has so many characters. He has a steam tank. The 1 heal, plus being a snipe, is kind of annoying on 2 dice if you just keep getting sniped. Plus, when you have a cannon and a big unit of crossbows, is really nice. And I think he usually takes maybe the Unity Convergence. So it's actually can be a lot of damage. If you're facing an army that's kind of like low armor, it's Fireball, Fire and Ice, hit everybody in the unit, possible snipe depending on your character setup. The snipe goes well with Quicksilver Lash on some big things too, where you're getting hit by a lash and a snipe every turn, and it'll ping you down a little, eventually. And Perception of Strength is an amazing spell. He has an army full of strength 4 to 6, and just having an extra strength here or there, or -1 strength for the enemy because his army has pretty good armor, is really nice. So as far as magic, I really do like it. I'm a fan of efficient magic setups. I like, I think the Skaven Wizard Master Magister with Thom and Second Awakening and Heirloom is enough magic to get you. Like, you just need that on foot, and he could be really effective if your army is taken right. Same with my warriors. I take 5 spells. They're attached to people who fight. So him, 400 some points for a non-fighting mage, but perfect. I think that's really great. So then we talk about these 2 Inquisitors. Really like them. They're 2 cowboys. Whoops, let's go back. They're 2 cowboys. The first one, I believe his save ends up being, I think it's a 1+ save. Let's see what they actually come with. It might not be a 1+ in combat. So they have plate armor mounted on a horse with shield. So it's a 1+ from shooting and a 2+ in combat because he has a halberd. But he doesn't fight with them a ton compared to the shooting. So this guy's pretty cool. So he's a cowboy who has a Dragonfire Bane gem, so great against alchemy. He's a 1-up save. He has Locket, so the guy sucks in combat. It's like, 2 strength something. So now with Locket, you have this mobile threat for things like giant demons, really strong chaos characters and stuff like that. It just becomes very annoying to face him because you don't want to switch stats with him. But when he's not fighting in combat or threatening the Locket, he has 3 strength, 4 attacks, I believe. Let's see what the strength is. So he has 3 strength 4 attacks from the repeater pistol. He gets reroll to wound and lethal strike and multi wound D3. That's like super good, right? Because he hits on a 3+, so I don't know if repeater pistols are quick to fire. Let's actually look at their stats. They are quick to fire. 3 strength 4 quick to fire shots. So if he gets within 6 inches, he hits on 3s. 4s normally. He can also do +1 to hit on them. And so reroll to wound. So think about it against a monster. Toughness 6 monster, it's a little bit worse because it needs 6s to wound. But let's say a giant or, a chariot or something like that. He needs 5s rerollable with 3, and then D3 wounds. That's almost, I don't know the math on it completely, but that could be like a mobile bolt thrower. Really good against characters that are by themselves, because even if they're toughness 4, 1-up save cowboys, 1, it's a AP2, but if he gets the lethal strike off, you might just take D3 wounds straight up. I mean, it's also really good versus like ogres, right? 3+, 4+ reroll, no save, D3 wounds. I mean, it's an annoying model for sure. Yeah, he can die, and he's not even that hard to kill outside of his unit. I mean, he's 3 1-up save wounds, and he's one of the most expensive characters he has. But I think there's a lot of, and you'll see how he kind of synergizes a little bit with down here. I just think it's something people don't see that before. People don't, we're used to cowboys who go up and fight and 1-up reroll will save and hold you up. But not as many people are used to like the cowboy that runs around behind you and shoots you for D3 wounds, So I really like this one. And then this one I think is more common. It's a 1-up rerollable save. I think he has 5 attacks, 5 strength, 5. Yeah, because it's a combination of Inquisitor that gives +2 agility, +1 strength. So he's AG 6. He only has 2 attacks base, but his model gives him that weapon gives him 5 attacks with battle focus against channel. So he has 5 strength 5 with D3 wounds because they have lethal strike D3 wounds built into them. So even the other guy with silver shots, when he goes into challenges, he's now lethal strike D3 wounds with a halberd, and you get your stats. So he will easily kill you, most characters. So yeah, I mean this second setup is just amazing for 350 points. A cowboy that does 5 strength 5 D3 wounds with lethal, that's so scary. He takes I think the one thing that people find the weirdest is none of these first 3 characters I think are odd. You see this, I mean, you see magic, whatever. You see this guy decent bit. You don't see this one too much. But he takes a BSB and he just puts him on foot and says, takes a binding scroll. Doesn't take Alchemist Alloy. I don't know where you get the points for it, but he just kind of says, all right, I'm a BSB. I'm going to sit in the unit. I may give Stubborn Imperial Guard. It's a 3-up save. Again, he's not worth a ton, though you don't want your BSB to die. A Binding Scroll is great just to have it versus any problematic spells. Again, keeps him cheap. Could this guy have Alchemist Alloy and get the 2-up save? Sure. Maybe if he had 15 points, maybe there's a world where he does it in the future. But besides that, like, you don't need anything super fancy on him. Sometimes he just sits in the infantry and provides his bubble and order. That's all you really need. Same for the general. Inquisitors, I believe, are leadership 8. Or are they 9? Could they be the general? Let's see. They're only 8. So there's only 2 guys that can be 9. So is a knight commander or a marshal. And he chose a knight commander. And so some good things about that is, one, I think he does it for this, the fearless and the parent unit thing, which we'll see the combo later on. And he's cheap. I mean, 220 points, 420 for the general. He's a 1-up save hero with MR2. MR2 is nice to have if you're against a lot of snipes, because you can either keep him, because he doesn't have to like charge him with the night bus, but if he's in the night bus and the other Inquisitors are in there with him, he doesn't keep them in there forever usually, from what I've seen. So I think that's a misnomer that he has this night bus of 2 Inquisitors and a Knight Commander. He almost always runs them out of the unit. But MR2 is just nice to have depending on if you need it. He can join up. You could have the Knight Commander, the Marshal, and the Wizard all in the light cav and just be the leadership reroll bunker, and you're not spending a ton of points on the leadership and the BSB. You don't have to fight with them. You can sacrifice them if needed, right? if you need to put your general one up, he's a one up save hero. Put him in front of something if you need to. If not, don't. I think the artificer on the horse with the long rifle is one of my favorite pieces he uses, because you've seen artificers before, but they're almost always on foot. And the great part about this guy is, so he's a 2 wound guy. Sure, he can be picked out of the unit, but I mean, do it. I mean, right? You have to at least shoot the unit twice and wound him both times, because it's probably like bolt throwers can do it a lot easier. But he's only 145 points. It's not like it's the end of the world. But if he stays alive, right? If you don't have anything to shoot him with or get him out of that unit, he gives this unit accurate, so +1 to hit light infantry. He's always going to be deployed within 6 of the cannon, so +1 to hit for the cannon. And if you ever get close to him, he is on a horse, so he can run out and chaff you for. So he's a chaff unit that gives +1 to hit to 2 of your units and has a strength 5 shot. I mean, what more do you want, right? Just I think the horse really adds that's like a little like I said, this list is full of little things that either are on purpose or are not on purpose. I'm going to say more so on purpose, of little synergies or little things like options, right? Like, it's very clear that Locket is, I think, a good item, and I like it on this guy because he's a cowboy. You know, it's not on like his wizard here who like stands in a unit. Like you can actively go and try to hunt down big demons with this guy. And if you're not hunting them down, you're shooting them for D3 wounds. So it's like, you know, it's one or the other. You know, cheap characters that can be thrown away at needed. Like I said, nothing's worth over 475 points. And I think this Artificers are really good in this build. As I said, +1 to hit for 19 strength 4 shots. That's essentially what? It's probably 3 or so more hits. +1 to hit for the cannon's great, and you're a chaff piece that can hide in a unit. So that's his character. 6 of them, all expendable to some extent, and very efficient. And I think these 2 cowboys are really good. Core. So he has knightly orders with cavalry pick. So I think I like cavalry pick. I think one thing I've noticed is, and I don't know again how intentional it is, at least for the 2 units, is he goes with. I do like that he goes with the AP3. They're strength 4 all the time. They don't need to charge. They're still 1-up saves. You kind of get the best of both worlds. I think cavalry pick are really good. Banner speed. So what he does a lot is, because he takes the Knight Commander, these guys can become a parent unit, which means they can benefit from orders and counter charge, to be fair. But the orders is nice because I think they're move 7 base, the horses, right? I'm assuming their horses are move 7, given that. Yes, they're move 7 horses. But he can put, because they become a parent unit with the Knight Commander, he can put on the double for +4 march, and the characters get it. Plus he has the +1 move banner, which has +2 march. So his characters, when he starts all his characters in that unit, or at least the 2 Inquisitors and the Knight Commander, that unit can move 20 inches marching turn 1. And the characters can run out of the unit. So a lot of times you'll see him like run his Inquisitors like right in front of the enemy army turn 1. So that's a synergy, you know, even if it's only used for 1 turn right away, that's a really nice synergy for the Inquisitors to basically get +6 march turn 1. And I don't think, that's the kind of example of, I don't think people see that coming so much. There's only so much you can do about it, to be fair. But I think people get caught off guard, are like, oh shit, you know, it's coming out of the unit super fast. Besides that, it's just a solid night unit. It does not a bus. It's just a unit, right? It's just a unit that has AP3 strength 4, banner speed, 1-up save. It's scoring. Light infantry. We've talked about this. What is it? Because they're supporting units, they can fire in 3 ranks. So if you're like 6 or 7 wide, you can shoot with all of them. You get +1 to hit because of the Artificer. Gives them, you know, ready aim fire or whatever the damn thing is. They can sit in the middle of the army. You can put your wizard in there, cast magic from there. You can give them +1 to hit if you need to from the Cosmos. And it's just a lot, you know, it's got a good bit of strength 4, and he doesn't have too much shooting in the middle. At least, like, his shooting's a little mobile with at least these 2. The cannon can shoot past it. So, you know, it creates a nice center of, you know, I don't have a million shots, Or at least a million units getting in my way for shooting, but it's a lot of shooting. If you just deploy in front of it and it hits you on accurate, it's 4+ to hit normally, so it's gonna hit you on if it gets the Cosmo spells off, it's 3s, right? I'm guessing that's 4+ to hit naturally for these units. Let's make sure. Where is it? There it is. Nope. Wait, what? Yeah, it's 4+. So, like I said, hitting on 4s all the time, it can just be a lot of shooting. Yep, I have nothing else to say about that. And it can countercharge and stuff if needed. So I think the heavy infantry, this is probably the most unseen one. 20-man units of halberds. You don't really see 20-man units of halberds a lot. They're pretty small. They lose to a lot of things, but they have some nice uses. They're scoring. They're cheap. He sometimes puts heroes in them to help protect them and stuff like that, or at least to minimize some of the shooting that can go on them. And they have the countercharge rule, which is essentially, if you set it up right, with the Imperial Guard, right, they get charged, these guys flank, and they get an extra 5 combat res because of a flank. Yeah, it's 6 combat res because it's flank, charge, big flank, 2 or 3 ranks. So it's 5 to 6 res depending on how many make it in. So, I mean, that's really good in and of itself. And they're little scoring units. I mean, you don't have to be super aggressive with them. His army is actually really shooty, but he has the knight unit and the cowboys and the tank to really, in this unit of Imperial Guard, to kind of hold the center or hold whatever's needed as he shoots you off the board. Imperial Guard, I actually like that he goes great weapons. He can be stubborn if he needs to. Just needs to put any character in it. It could be a Inquisitor. It could be a Knight Commander. Or the BSB, depending on how safe he wants to be. I like great weapons because this unit, I just like it. I just think Strength 6 is really good. And yeah, you're a 4-up save instead of the 3-ups. Yeah, who cares? Pay the points and get the Strength 6. It's just your attacks matter. You have orders to get extra ranks of fighting if needed. And the orders are actually really cool. The cool part is you can actually give it to your unit after it flees. So if your crossbows flee, you can give it the discipline minimized and swift reform in the beginning of your turn, so then it rallies on minimize, and then it can move and stuff like that. And the fighting extra rank is pretty good for most of it. They're just cute little. He only has 1 order, but first turn it has a very. I think what I like about it is accurate is always good on the crossbows. That's what the Artificer does, but he has a very clear turn 1 order in the march for the knights most of the time. And I just think that it's if you have 6 orders, you're only gonna not all of them are gonna be that useful, but it's kind of nice to say, and this kind of goes back to Malifaux when I used to play, of active turn 1s where you have you're using all your power and what you're paying for early. Otherwise, if you didn't have a unit that you wanted to throw a bunch of characters out of with march +6 or something, then what are you really giving yourself turn 1? Maybe minimize checks just in case you get shot and take a panic check. But I don't know. I really like that aspect of the list. It seems like everything has a purpose and works together, right? The Artificer is chaff that gives this +1 to hit, this +1 hit. Fast Cav, it's a chaff unit. He doesn't go too much with it. It has pistols, great. Use your pistols. It's chaff. That's how he uses it. Imperial Rangers, I think they're becoming more popular lately. I know this is something new to his list. He used to have some demigriffs in his list, and he went to 2x9 Rangers. And I know some other lists have been using them before him. But 2 shots each, good against beasts, lethal strikes, throws 18 shots. Bows that have lethal strike can ping wounds on Feldrake Elders. I think it's 1 or 2 wounds per unit, depending on how far away you are. And it's just annoying. They're chaff. They're slow, but that's fine. But because they're skirmish, I like the 9-man units. I don't know if it's points or if he actually actively wanted 9 units. But 1, obviously for panic checks, You need to kill 3 instead of 2. That's an old thing. But what in the new skirmishing rules, it just creates a nice box. Like a 3x3 is a very nice. If you had a 10th unit, a 10th person, and you want to go 3x3, you're an extra inch back in the back because of it. So this kind of makes it easier to maneuver and easier to fit places, just being a nice little 3x3 square. I don't know if that mattered, but I think for deployment purposes, it actually is kind of interesting. And maybe it doesn't matter, but I've seen him do it a lot. But I've seen him put the crossbows and then put both these units in front of the crossbows. And because they're skirmishers, they don't affect the line of sight. So you effectively get this like little battery of shooting where, it's crossbows with, you're fitting this into like 7 wide. In a 7 wide infantry models, you're fitting like 50 shots, right? 18, 36 plus, it's like 55 shots in a 7-inch wide bubble, and they can go out in other places if needed. But it's just annoying shooting, and it can really thin out. I mean, 18 shots can really thin out little infantry units, other shooting units. I think they have normal bows, right? I think they just have normal bows, but let's look real quick. The fact that they're 2 shots each is pretty, for 130 points, is pretty ridiculous. And they hit on 3s, I think. I don't think I'm lying about that. No, I hit on 4s. I did lie. I lied about what they hit on. But still, 2 shots each. So normally, like hitting on 4s or 5s, I don't know. It's just really nice. And then lethal strike against beasts is actually kind of annoying for like elders and stuff like that. But again, they're only 134 points for 18 shots. So a cannon's a cannon. I don't know what else to say about a cannon. It can do big things. He gets +1 to hit naturally on it because of the engineering. He has a spell that can give it +1 to hit. It's always threatening. And then you have the steam tank, which is one of the best models in the game, in my opinion. And I like how he uses it, too. He's much more aggressive with it. He kind of puts it out there and says, deal with it. It's healable. It's random mover, so it covers a lot of space. You put it in the middle of your army and move it forward, and you have all your shooting behind it and your magic, and maybe your cowboys, and it really creates a lot of space you can't go into. And unless somebody can go up and one-shot it or something like that, it really is quite an annoying piece, and it is healable. So I think what happens a lot of times is people deploy almost like in front of his army, being like, I'm going to go kill it. And then turn 1 or so, the cowboys come out with it's cowboys and stank come out into the middle, and you're like, oh shit, that's hard to deal with. And then he shoots half your army off because you realize that all the magic and shooting does a lot of damage to a lot of things. And you're sitting there like getting shot off the board, but you can't really go forward into the steam tank, and you end up just like bleeding out points and losing. Like I said, I think it's a great army in how it's built. I think there are a lot of nice synergies and stuff in between it. No point sinks, good use of orders, and for 145 points, you get a lot of use out of this guy. And I think these 2 guys are really good. Efficient magic. There's nothing that I look at and go like, okay, why did you buy that? Why did you take this? It all seems to work together. And then, sure, there can be changes and stuff, I'm sure, in the future that maybe he'll find. But on paper right now, it seems very solid. It has 5 scoring, which is a lot. So, in most of his scoring is, 3 units are on the cheaper side. He might not be the best breakthrough army in the world, but I think it also goes, as I said, people aren't used to playing against this type of list, but I also think he plays it a lot differently. I think he's much more aggressive with a list that doesn't feel like aggressive. It's like aggressive with a lot of shooting behind it. So, right, he puts up his characters and his stank, and then you're like, oh shit. And then he has a choice, right? He can either keep aggression and try to, fight you off, or he can kind of sit there and say, well, I'm going to continue shooting you and magicking you. You can choose to come in and risk it or not, or, whatever. Because it has enough shooting to do that. It kind of has a nice balance of shooting and defensive attacking things. And I like how he doesn't waste a lot of points on his like martial and stuff like that. because like I will say some of these units can definitely get beat up in combat, but it has just enough shooting and the units are just strong enough and support each other just enough that it almost lures you to come in and then it can fight you off, right? If somebody has a unit of 40 halberdiers with 3 characters and a bunch of buff wagons, it's pretty clear you cannot fight that. But he also spent 1,000 points making it so you can't fight it, right? I think it was something Thomas said a long time ago. Somebody had like a bus of Skaven characters, and it's like, well, I wouldn't charge it even if there was only 2 characters instead of 4. So essentially, those extra 2 characters you're paying for are just like buffers that are unneeded. It could have been something else, right? If somebody's not going to charge, I don't know. Like there's a point where the math kind of flips, right? And if somebody's not going to charge your unit of Chaos Warriors with 3 Chosen Lords in it, they might not charge it with 2 Chosen Lords in it. They might not charge it with 1 Chosen Lord in it. And so at some point, you know, obviously there's always, you can run things out of units and stuff. But I think that's the problem with like Death Star sometimes is you put so many points into a Death Star and it just gets chaffed all game. And you could have had 600 points less that did other things while the Death Star did exactly what it did before. So I think that kind of maybe is shown here where it's like, well, he just enough. And I think you do have to be a skilled player to use this list. And I'm curious to see how it does going forward. Obviously, it's doing very well in the Ocho, and it only has 1 game left, or Cinco. But as people adapt and get better at playing against it, because he's played it online a couple times. I don't know how much in person he's played. I don't think much, at least not in tournaments. So it's kind of, it always going to have that newness unless people start picking it up and trying it themselves. Again, I think when really going through the list, I think it's really cool. Like it's one of the lists that I was like, it seems, I don't know if I'd like it myself. I can't tell if I'd like to play it, or if I could play it well. Could I play it well? Maybe. Would I like it? I don't know. Again, really just curious to see how it develops. But hey, if you want to look at Empire, look at this kind of list. And again, I keep harping on it. I looked at it more. I'm like, man, he does not take anything that no one like. There's no unit that pops out to me of like, holy crap, I've never seen that before. Right? It's not like it's no stank, mass, something else, right? It's kind of like, well, I guess there's not much in the Empire book that is that weird, I guess, looking at it. But it's just like, it just feels good on paper. And it shoots the shit out of you. I've seen it shoot the shit out of so many people. And obviously, like I said, it's a good general, a great general playing it. That's probably the biggest thing that I think, don't go pick up this list and think you're just going to go get 100 points somewhere. He would be good with it, whatever list he played. Kind of like Thomas, right? It's like he's going to score points no matter what he plays. But I think it was very interesting to see all the little synergies in this and how he uses some of the Empire special rules with. I talked a little bit about countercharge, but that's kind of something you have to see on the board. I don't even know a lot about it. But it's definitely a threat there, and you only need a 20-man unit to threaten the countercharge and make it almost impossible to charge something. So again, I think he's doing more with less and really squeezing out the synergies and the effectiveness of the army without overloading on like the 40-man unit of halberds with all the buffs, wagons, and stuff like that. But anyway, that's my list spotlight for the Cinco. I thought this was a good one. And, thanks for listening.